Hello, kia ora, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you so much for joining us for our Monday weather update. And we've got windy weather coming in this week for both New Zealand and Australia. In particular, the North Island at the end of this week and the southeastern corner of Australia really for the week ahead. So let's make sense of what's going on. High pressure dominates the Tasman Sea, and in fact, the windy weather that's coming up this week, mostly due to squash zones around that high. What is a squash zone? It's simply that windy area between low pressure and high pressure, the halfway mark between the two. So we don't actually have a stormy low coming in this week, but we do have gales across Australia and New Zealand, and it's mostly due to this high pressure zone out here in the Tasman Sea. And we've also got some low pressure in Western Australia. That's going to help enhance those windy northerlies in the southeast later this week, and low pressure up here in the tropics, which is helping to feed that low pressure zone north of New Zealand. So let's try and make sense of what's coming our way. Here we are for Tuesday. So we've got that low pressure zone just to the north here, and further to the south, high pressure drifting over the South Island, keeping things fairly settled. The windy easterlies that northern New Zealand's had, in fact, since the end of last week, takes a little bit of a breather around Tuesday and Wednesday this week. And at the same time that happens, windy northerlies are now picking up on the other side of that high around Adelaide. You'll start to notice that on Tuesday. By Wednesday, that windy northerly flow goes from Adelaide to Sydney to Melbourne to Hobart, and it's coming out of Queensland. So it's warm and windy for you on Wednesday, but in New Zealand, not as windy. Finally, those easterlies at the top of the country take a bit of a breather, but further to the south, a slightly cooler southwest flow just coming into the lower South Island. But look at all this low pressure to the north, and there are some rain clouds up there. So this is the next 3 days of rain from 8 o'clock on Thursday morning, so taking you into the weekend. Now this area of rain up here, anywhere between 45 millimetres and about 80 to 90 millimetres, a fine line for some heavy rain. Now that high pressure zone we just showed you in the Tasman will dominate how much rain falls in the north of the country. You can go to weatherwatch.co.nz to see that rainfall map, and also ruralweather.co.nz to drill down with your local rainfall totals. But you can see here on Thursday at lunchtime, high pressure over the South Island, low pressure to the north, and the squash zone right in the middle. Windy easterlies kicking in. But that high only has to expand a little bit, and the rainfall map we just showed you will start to change. Likewise, if the high shrinks a little bit. So worth keeping an eye on, because it's not 100% locked in, but we do expect some windy weather. So windy easterlies for northern New Zealand, windy northerlies for the southeastern corner of Australia, and it's all due to this high pressure zone down around the South Island. So let's go into Friday. Windy. It kicks off with windy weather in the North Island on Friday morning. This is 10 o'clock Friday morning. This is the main squash zone around Auckland, Coromandel Peninsula, potentially eastern Waikato. That's usually a windy area. Just might be a little bit more southeast. Not quite so bad for places like my hometown of Te Aroha. But up here, windy weather, and we're talking about gusts of 100 to 110 k's an hour in coastal areas. Mostly north of Auckland though, but around Whangarei to Auckland, in that area, that's the main squash zone with windy weather for you on Friday. You can see it here on the Friday map. Now, a little bit different on this map. The airflow is a bit more northeast. The one we just showed you was a bit more southeast. That's because the placement of the high will be critical, and so that's not 100% locked in. But here on Friday, windy around the North Island with rain in the north. And in Australia, windy weather over here in Perth. A different direction though, southerlies blowing through for you. It'll be fairly dry in Perth itself though, but a windy day on the way for the end of the working week. And our final map for Saturday shows really what we've been seeing all spring. A mixture, a variety of high pressure zones and low pressure zones on the map. Another high off the screen there in the Indian Ocean. So unsettled as we go in towards the weekend. Warm northerlies for New Zealand with some rain around on Saturday. And I'd imagine with that warm subtropical airflow, might even be a couple of isolated thunderstorms bubbling up into Saturday afternoon. It'll be a bit more humid with that airflow coming from around Tonga and dropping right down over the country. That is all from me for today. We'll be back again on Tuesday with our next update. We'll see you then.